Welcome back to episode 4. So in this one we're going to kick right off with these sanding sticks. Now if you're familiar with the channel, you'll know I use these all the time, and I was contacted by Ed at Premium Hobbies, and he mentioned about just getting some Infini sanding sticks and doing a review. I didn't quite realise they were these ones, so this is an unusual scenario where I actually get to talk to you about something that I use every single day that I'm in here modelling for every single model. They've changed my modelling sort of, they've taken me to the next level as far as sanding and seam finishing and stuff, so this is really good. So there we go, we've got the clean pack, which is very nice to be sent out, but I don't need it because, as you'll see here, I've been using these for probably over a year now, and they are quite simply the best thing I have ever really purchased in modelling, I must admit, as far as a tool's concerned. You know, you could say about airbrushes and things like that, but as far as a type of sanding stick, I've used every single one I can get hold of. I've got Squadron ones, we've got the Flory models ones, we've got UMP ones, all sorts of things. I've even used nail files and all the rest of it, and I can quite happily say that these are certainly far ahead of any of the others. They're not 100% as far as my sanding is concerned. They're not. I don't use them 100%. Sorry. I worked it out earlier. I think I probably use these Infini sanding sticks for probably 75% of the time. Pretty much 75% of the sanding that I have to do, seam work and all the rest of it, is catered for by these. Then, I must admit, I then do move into the Flory sanders, which I prefer out of all the ones that are available, and I use these two sort of new ones. I don't really know what they are. They don't put grits on them or anything, but I find them very useful, mainly because they've got that sort of rigid bit. So where these are a sponge, you'll see that there'll be certain instances where they're not so good, and obviously this is more solid. And then I would say that you'd go down to like the metal files, probably use them 5% of the time. So as part of an overall toolkit for sanding, these very much go right up. It used to just be the Flory and UMP sanders that I used more, and these have got rid of those. I have previously on the channel done a review of the other type of sanding sticks that Infini do as well. These are also available from Premium Hobbies, and these are a bit more rigid, so they're not as spongy. They're kind of in between. I suppose they're getting on like a Flory sander, but that's even more rigid. But these create the opportunity for where I was saying before. So if you were going to say if you've got a heavy seam line back here, for instance, to go straight in on it with one of these sponges, you're going to be sanding, you know, you're going to be getting that effect. You can see it bending. You're going to be sanding a lot more plastic than what you need, whereas if you went with something like this, you're going to be straight across where it wants to be, and it's not going to conform to the surface so much. So we're not going to go massively into how to sand models, because that's not what this is about. I mean, really, I've done a little short video on sanding this Polycarpov that I've got here, this I-16, and that just talks you through what I'm using the different grits for. We start at 220. There you go, the point there, that's not 220. So start at 220, which is an extremely coarse grit, and there's it's not for there's not many uses in modelling, I must admit. It starts to tear the plastic a little bit at that size. Then we go on up through 400, 600, 800, then finishing off with 1000, 1500, 250, and the 4000. The 4000 really isn't really applicable to plastic. It sort of brings it up too far, I would say. It makes it kind of glossy, but I use that to prove the point as well. And I've got to admit, I think I tend to be hanging around these three here for pretty much most of my modelling, and then the 800 would fall in if I need to get in a bit tighter. These other three are really for reducing plastic, really taking it off and getting right through. So if you've got mismatched levels, if you've got seams and joins that are got a bit of a step in them, then you'd want to hit it with the 220 and then bring the scratches out slowly with the 400, 600, and on they go. I believe these are around the sort of £10–11 mark. If you haven't used them and you like the idea of sanding, and adding them to your sanding repertoire. You can buy them individually. I started out with the 800 and then liked it so much that I moved on and got the rest of them. As I say, the 4000 is really a polisher. It's more for canopies or bringing out smoothing down paint, that sort of thing. That's where it's used. And you can also check out these. There's also a set of these as well. These are the Infini, I think they're called Superfine. Oh no, Ultra Precision series. And then this is the Softback sanding sponge stick. So that's the two. They go very well together. There is another set of these you could try. I haven't myself. I think they're pretty similar to these, just made somewhere else. So hopefully you'll like the short clip that's coming up, and we'll pick it up after that. So this is the Infini Softback sanding sponge demonstration, although there are a couple other sanding sticks that are going to make an appearance in here for numerous reasons. First off, just showing you here what I've got. So we've got some sprue goo set up along the join here, where we've got a sort of wing join. It's not really like the usual wing root scenario with the polycarp off. And I've actually got a little bit of a step here, and I'm just trying to take that out now with the 400 sanding sponge, which needless to say doesn't work very well. So I go on down to the 220, and this is a perfect example of what these sticks can't do. So it's a funny way to start a demonstration when you're doing a tool review, but it's important to note that here you've seen the switch onto a flory sanding stick. So this is a skinny stick, and the very coarse one, that's the white core one, and I'm just getting through the levels to bring it back to an even level. And then once you've got the height down and you've gone through the sprue goo, that's when the Infini sanding sponges really come into their own. So they're not really so good on complex surfaces, not that this is, but there's some raised detail around. So it's better to use some of these flatter and stiffer sanding sticks for this, not an actual sanding sponge. This isn't really the scenario for that. I'm here now using one of the Infini precision sanders just to level it off, and now we begin bringing out the scratches and the roughness using the 400 from the Infini sponge range. And it's a very nice size. It's really good in the hand, and that's what I like. There's a lot of good points about this. It's very solid because that plastic core that it comes with is very, very good. Just chucking in the 600 now, as you see, going up through the grits. It's a good way to pull out all of the scratches that you'll get from the coarser sticks. So yeah, the actual core is extremely good. It's just about thick enough. The glue on the core is very good as well. And where you sort of might see that the 800 sticks actually had a bit cut out of it, you can cut these down very nicely to create your own sort of thin sanding sticks or skinny sticks or whatever you want to call them. And the glue stays very good even when you go down quite narrow. So I mean, I've been using this set here. I've still got duplicates of these because they come in packs of 2. I've not started the new one of any of these yet. And I've not had any problem with delamination or anything, and I've been very, very rough with these. In fact, they actually, as you go through them, I find they sort of take on their own sort of character, I guess. As you use them, you run the grits down, so they become a little bit smoother, a little bit softer, and you kind of get a feel for them. And you can wipe out most of the plastic just by giving them a wipe on your jeans or trousers, and that keeps them clean. So that they're very good. Like I said, I can't think of anything bad apart from if you use them in the wrong situation, which I was doing at the start, and that's why I highlighted it. They're also extremely good for following contours. So where this is a round fuselage body, when you actually start to sand that back and smooth it down, it's brilliant, because if you're using a flat sponge, a flat stick, sorry, you'll get a flat spot, whereas when you're using a sponge like this, it conforms to it, so you don't get this. Here, just for the example, I'm using the 4000 sponge, which is the polisher at the end, and you'll see when we actually look at a close-up that it's given it a kind of gloss, which isn't really what you need for plastics, but it is good for if you want to, if you're preparing for decaling or something like that and you want to smooth the paint. That's where it's a very good scenario, getting scratches out of clear parts, all of that. But where you're looking here, that's a little bit too shiny for a plastic finish. From my personal point of view, I like it a little bit, not quite as shiny as that, I guess. But there you see, we've pulled that right out, and I've gone in extremely coarse at the start there with the flory sticks, and then to end with that, I just couldn't get this with other sticks as easy as I can get with these. So that is the Infini sanding sponge set. So hopefully that's of use, and if they're of interest, check them out. There's a link in the description below. So there we go. As I say, that's the Infini Sanders. So there's a quick shout out to Premium Hobbies. That's a small little company based in Weston-super-Mare who've I've been using, again, before they sent me anything. I've been using them for a long time. So it's nice to get a bit of feedback or actually be picked up from someone who you actually use and you can endorse without having to feel like you have to. Not that I do that, hence with the ammo MIG tutorial that we had last week, I was very impressed with those, but you do feel like there's a sort of, you're trying to get the best out of it, and something like this, you don't even have to try. They've literally changed my hobby for the good, so I'm very happy that they're in my toolkit. I teased you with it before, and here we are. It's time to talk about what's on the bench. So this is the Polycarpov i16 Type 10 from ICM. This is the one that I did a review of a few weeks ago, maybe even a couple of months ago now. And I'm just searching around on my bench here to show you the missing part to this. So this is going to be one that I've got some Montex masks sorted out for, and after last week's episode, considering what I've actually bought here, which is the CM225, you could quite rightly say, why am I not printing those? And that's a good question. Laziness, I guess. So here we are. This is the one I've chosen. Not just because there was a mass set for it. I really do like this scheme because it's got more interest with the red on the horizontal stabilisers and the fin, but also keeping that green around. I did a whole red tail one before, so it's nice to mix it up. And this will go nicely with my Azure kit as well, also in 1/32, which was one of the hardest models I've ever had to build, and the less said of that the better. But when this one's complete, that will feature in the reveal of that video. I think it'd be quite nice to put the two together and compare them. So that's what the finish is going to be, and I'm also going to pick up another one to use this scheme here, because for a number of reasons. It's obviously very colourful, it's probably the pick of the two, but it also kicks into the 1940 period, which is right at the end of my special interest group, and I do neglect that area, so it's nice to bring in some of the sort of pre-war, post-war aspect to it. I've done a few bits of the pre-war, but I haven't done any post-war stuff, so it'd be nice to have this one in. Now this kit, I haven't had a kit like this before really. I've built a few 1/32 kits, nothing from ICM, and it is quite astonishing just how good the fit is. There is one major drawback, I suppose, but it's not too much of a massive problem, and that is there's mould lines. It's on everything. We get mould lines with a lot of kits, but this is particularly bad. You do have to scrape every single part, has to be sanded and sort of reshaped. But once you're past that, the good news is the fit is just fantastic. I mean, this is no joke. This is probably not even 5 hours work to get to this point. So I think I started this 3 days ago, and that's one good session, probably about 3 or 4 hours, and then a couple of very small sessions, so maybe another 2 hours on top of that. So it is remarkable to get to this stage. Everything's off the sprue, everything's been cleaned up, and I'm just starting to work on the seams, and that's what I've been doing with those sanding sticks. So there was a major join here where this whole section dropped in to the rear of the fuselage, and I think that's looking pretty tidy. I'm hoping that's going to be okay. When I snap the fuselage into the wings, so this is a join here, so the fuselage goes out and it slots in, much like the Edward thing, it just lines up. Again, you put the cowling on, we've already got that all together, and that just snaps in there. It does make you worry, because when you're doing this you think, oh, it sort of falls apart, but it's just very sort of tight tolerances, and the slightest move it will fall out. But once you've got it all together, the join is really good. We've got a full engine in there, which I was going to expose, but just to try and get the build going together, I just wanted to do this one out the box and not worry about it too much. And there was quite a lot of mould lines around those cylinder heads, so I didn't want to go cylinder blocks. Sorry, I didn't want to go cleaning those up. And then this all sort of slots in. It's a bit fiddly, but when you get there, once you've glued all the parts together, you've got all these exhausts sticking out, and then you've got to slide these panels all over the exhaust and slot them in. It looks like it's going to be a nightmare, but it really does work quite well. It's very impressive. It's engineered extremely well, and it's not the sort of kit you would expect. You know, you don't think of ICM to come out with these engineering ideas that are going to really work well, but they do. And it's very nice to see, very refreshing. So this one's going to be well underway. I'm not promising about having this finished anytime soon. I just wanted to get well into it because this is a build that's got to be on the table at Telford, as well as the 109 Legion Condor. So I just wanted to start those kits and push through them so I can get them to a point where I know, you know, a few hours and I'll have them done. So we're well on the way here once all the plastic's together. Simple paint scheme, 3 colours, just a bit of masking. And that's what I like to know. Don't want to be rushed when it comes to Telford. I like to be ahead of the game. So this one, I've got a few more bits to do to this. Like I said, keep an eye out, and we'll have more updates on that shortly. Something else a little bit different that's been on the go at the minute on the bench is this little 172nd fighter. Now, I'm not sure all of you would recognise what plane this is, but it's a very nice plane, and it should be better known, I think. And this is a Huncle fighter, so there's not much to show you here with the instructions. It literally, I thought there was actually a picture on it, but it's not. I got this one just sent to me by a friend, so it's just bagged with all the bits in it. This is a Huncle 112, so it's the HE 112, which is one of the prototype fighters that was going up against the 109 and a few other planes around at the time for Germany's main fighter. This one lost out, although there was enough produced for it to go into sort of a semi-production, I suppose. Main deployment was actually in Spain with the Legion Condor. The Romanians had a few, and they popped up a few. They popped up in a few other places as well. And this kit has actually gone together really well. Again, this is another simply just a week's work. And this is a short run kit. And when I say a week's work, it literally was just a few evenings. I just thought I'd plough into it because I love the aircraft so much. And again, I want it on the table. So what we've got here is a few bits that show it as being a sort of short run kit. So you get a piece of etch there. You actually get a resin engine, which is a bit odd. These panels go in on the side, and you could remove those, I suppose, and have the engine in, but I've chosen not to do it. Undercarriage together there as well, and you've got quite overly flattened wheels, I would say, but all in all, it's going very well. I hope to actually get through this one a bit further. Where's the decal sheet? Here we go. There's a bit more to it. So there's the decals, and there's a bit more to this fighter. So if I actually show you here, we've got there's some of the marking schemes you get. Actually, very colourful. Now, unfortunately, these are very much post-war as far as the Spanish Civil War is concerned. These are a lot later, going into sort of 1944-45. In fact, one of these actually shot down a P-38 because they retained them in the Spanish Air Force, and I think a P-38 was going over Morocco, and they decided to fly out and engage it and actually shot it down over Morocco. So that shows just how good a fighter it was. That's one of... No, it is the same, yeah, it's all B1, so I thought that was one of the later ones. You get B2 as well, which has got a different engine. So there is a few sort of changes. We've also got V9 as well, that's one of the prototypes, and you've got BO as well, but that's the one I'll be doing. This is a B0, and it's 552. In fact, I think, actually, no, I'm doing a different one. I found a picture of one that I can do by cutting up some of these decals, so hopefully these decals are going to do okay. So that's what we're looking at there. The only thing that slowed me down is I did a bit of rescribing here and I got a bit carried away. Yeah, I got a bit carried away here with the scribing, and it didn't really go anywhere to plan is what I thought, so I've had to put some sprue glue in there, try and fill some of the trenches that I dug into it, and then actually be a bit more sensible, use some tape and actually put a good line in there. So these panels are the ones that are removable. It's always the case with this kit. There's a Hella model as well where they're separate, because this is the main difference to the different the B0, B1, B2. They've got different exhaust outlets. So it makes sense for the kit to leave these as separate parts, but it leaves a larger gap than is natural when you compare it to the actual beautiful recessed panel lines that we've got here. So because of that, you know, you have to try and scribe and match it up, and it's very easy to go wrong, which I did. But apart from that, the rest of the airframe is pretty sound. It's got that kind of Corsair kind of Stuka look to it, so gull wing there. It's a really handsome aircraft, so hopefully that one will be up with you shortly. And that's something else to look forward to. And now this is a little bit, this isn't really, I wasn't going to show this on the channel, it's not really related, but I'm just so impressed by it. If there's anyone else like me out there looking for information on this, which is probably can't be more than 2 of you out there, this is your moment. I thought I'd share it, so instead of doing this separately, I thought I'd share it with you guys on the weekly show, because this is a nice touch. I don't know whether any of you will know what this is. You may have seen it, you may have not. Depends. It all depends on what you sort of model and how long you've been about doing it as well, I guess. Now, I'm not. I've been doing it, I suppose, on and off for rather a long time, since I was a child. And I'm not too old. I'm in my 30s, so I haven't been doing it for a massive amount of time, seriously. I suppose probably about the last 10 years on and off, and solidly the last 5 years. And when I got into the Spanish Civil War stuff, I started looking up at all the aircraft that were there, and built the website that's up there, and did a list of all the aircraft kits that were available. And it came up that the de Havilland DH9 was used in Spain. Who knew? That is, for those of you that don't know, and there's probably none of you there, but that is a World War I biplane fighter being used in a war in 1936. And it wasn't just used at the start, it did go on quite a long way, and certainly could have been in the skies when Messerschmitt 109s were as well. But it's certainly going up against things like Fiats and ground strafing attacks when you've got quite heavy armament on the ground and in the air around it. So that was obviously an interesting thing from me. DH9, as with everything else in the Spanish Civil War, not as straightforward. There's plenty of DH9s out there, but there are no DH9s out there that are like the ones used in Spain, because they had a different engine. And that meant a different front, a different cowling, and all the rest of it. So, anyway, come across Scalemates, and someone put up on Scalemates that this conversion kit existed, which is for the Airfix DH4, so you convert the fuselage and use the wings. I couldn't find it at all anywhere, not seen it anywhere. I mean, you know, where's this going to turn up to? It actually, as you dig a bit deeper, it turns out this is printed in 1988. So I can't imagine there was a lot of these printed in the first place, let alone any still being available in 2019, which is rather a long time after it. But I hear you say, there's one on my desk, so something must have happened. Yes, this is why I would say, if you guys don't go to a local club, don't have a local club, haven't thought about it, you really should just have a look online, see if there's a club local to you, and just go along, because that's what I did a few years ago, and it's been a very good experience ever since. It helps the modelling. It can be a hobby that sort of consumes you, and you can sit in your room, look on the internet and all that, but you don't get much engagement until you go to shows and stuff. So having a sort of weekly, monthly meet or whatever with like-minded people is very useful. And I just mentioned to someone who collects model kits of certain of British aircraft that I was looking for this. Lo and behold, he chucks this across the table to me at the next meeting and says basically that you know, that's yours, carry on with it, I've already built one. So who would have believed that? You just don't know what's around, I suppose. So I'm very happy with this for this reason. We got E up here, which is the version, one of the versions used in Spain. There is actually even a picture of this, believe it or not. It's just amazing what turns up out of this period. And we've got some decals here. Now, of course, these might be a little dubious, but there's nothing to at 1988, I mean, it would be a bit of a push for these decals to come out like they're from a brand new Edward kit. I'm sure with a bit of care they could be used, or failing that, you know, it's pretty simple to sort out the tails. There's plenty of roundels doing out there, and you can also use the 3-4-4. You could cut around and all the rest of it, not a problem. However, the plot thickens, because I probably won't be doing this scheme. I'm probably looking at doing one of the Republican schemes, and this is a captured Republican aircraft. So what we have here is very old school way of doing it. It is amazing that they actually did injection moulding on the fuselage. Usually you'd think this would be resin, so that's something at least, I suppose. And you've got recessed panel lines as well, but the fuselage is blocked in. The cockpit, sorry, is blocked in, and it's literally, you've got to cut everything out. So you've got these kind of crude marks here showing you where to cut out to take the white metal engine, which is a lovely, really lovely casting of that, and you've also got a few small other bits as well. So you've got the nice engine there, the Sydney Puma engine. So there we go. This is what it was re-engined to, and this is one of the ones that ended up in Spain. So we've got a nice white metal casting there, which is very different. I haven't used white metal in scale modelling for a while. A two-bladed propeller, which is, again, it's really well done. It's got a very nice shape to it. Of course, being a conversion, I suppose the whole point is, you know, this is where they get it right. So that's a nice touch there. And then we've got a few small parts here which make up the rear gun position. So that's not, I'm not sure what that is. Oh, that's the exhaust. That's the exhaust for the engine. So we've got a stack there and another exhaust stack on the other side. Then we've got Vickers machine gun, or what it does say there. We've got a Vickers machine gun forward firing, and then two Scarif mounted Lewis guns. So we've got one there at least. I think that's about it. Well, that's not a problem. I think I've got a whole set of these actually. Yeah, I do. This one. So that's not a problem. We can add some of those in, and I think we've got a radiator there as well. So interesting way of doing it. Of course, these days that would probably be resin if you were to get a kit like this. And if we just have a look at the fuselage, how it's moulded. So there you go. We've got recessed panel lines, small details running through, some recessed areas to take the kit part. So that's presumably where the cabane struts are going to go. This recessed part here is to take the lower wing from the Airfix kit for the DH4, and there you can see you've got a solid part there, which is what gets cut out to create the cockpit. Now, it won't surprise you that it is part, you know, it's my plan to build this, but this isn't going to be ready for Telford. It's not going to be rushed at all. I'm certainly not going to risk messing this up, because I'm not expecting to get two of these ever. And now all of that is without saying I don't have a DH4 kit from Airfix in 1/72 scale. So I'm sure that will be sorted out at Telford. There's going to be hundreds of them around, I'm certain of that. So I'm going to pick up two kits, I think, just to make sure I've got plenty of parts to get on with. And this one is going to be just in the background. I'm not going to complicate it by filming the video in depth or anything. This one's going to be a build for me, I think. And try and make something of it, do a nice bit of scratch building, try and get as much detail in there as possible, do a nice cockpit, and when it's done you'll see all about it. I will swamp the place, the channel, the internet, everywhere with photos of this, so you can look forward to that. So hopefully that will be something completed for next year, but I just thought I'd share with you that it's a nice thing to be given. And I'm certainly happy to have it in the collection. I didn't think I would get it, so you never know with things like this. There's certainly some aircraft that we used in Spain that I don't think I'm ever going to see a kit of, you know, unless I try and scratch build them. And this was one that was always going to be difficult, and now that's one I don't have to worry about. So, something a little bit interesting, I think, and hopefully you'll agree that it's made a nice little segment to this weekly show. And now, just to round the show off, a quick chat about what's coming up. So I'm going to be having this one this week as a inbox review. So this is the Albatross D5 in 1/48 scale, and this is the weekend edition of this kit. Now, I think I am right in saying that this kit has been around for a while, so this is a new edition of this kit from Edward, just a rebox with some new decals. Very interesting schemes, I thought. I don't know which one to pick out of those two. You know, I like both of them equally for different reasons, so I'll probably have to decide when I get to the painting stage. All of these, I know I'm promising a lot, but they will get built. Like I've said before, I've got plenty of time coming up, so I want to do a few of these to break up things. Certainly after the run down to Telford, it's nice to have a few of these kits just to dive into, and you know you're going to be dealing with quality. It's a nice build, and it pressures off. We don't have to worry about it. So we've got that coming up. The Faisler Storch is going to be ready for Sunday. So I've just got to touch up some weathering and then edit the video. So there is going to be another build video coming up on Sunday for you there. And that will bring that quite complex build to an end. It was more in depth than I hoped or wanted and expected it to be. But I think I'm reasonably happy with the result, and it's going to be a nice piece for Telford. So that's good. And like I said, on the run down to Telford, there's going to be a lot going on. So I'll be continuing with the Polikarpov and the HE112, both of which are being filmed, so when they're ready you will see those. I'm also going to make a start on the Edward 1/32 Condor Legion boxing, so that will be ticking on. I'm almost certain as well I'm going to start breaking up some of these builds, and instead of waiting until having the whole video ready, actually put partial videos up. So part 1, you know, maybe do them in 3 parts or whatever. I don't always do that because I've got a history of doing that, getting to the last part and not completing it, but I assure you these will all find their end, so I will make sure I sort that out. And I've also got a few little surprises in the background, so when those things are ready, we will put them on the channel. Now, as I mentioned last week about doing a spraying demonstration, I've chosen not to do it as part of this video, but I've got some trusty plastic sploons, as we got here, and they will be getting some paint on them, and I'll do that as a standalone video. Again, when that's ready and up, you'll see that, and that will be part of our build schedule. So the Albatross video will be up on Thursday, Pfizer Storch up on Sunday, and then we've got another weekly show coming next Tuesday. So as usual, if you like what you see, please consider subscribing to the channel. Have a look at some of the other videos, because there's plenty more on the channel. And until next time, I'll see you in the next video.